It is 2K World Cup action at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Bowmanville, Canada, just outside Toronto, is the site for round 5 of the Skip Barber Formula 2000 World Cup. I'm Dylan Coyle, joined alongside Gary Weaver. And Gary, how are you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful here, Dylan. It has been quite some time since I've personally been to the virtual Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and the last time I was here, it was absolutely incredible racing in Indy cars. But now we're going to have much more space here with these Skip Barber cars, and a lot more drafting as well, especially down that long back straightaway. And this track has produced so much amazing racing, not only in iRacing but in real life throughout the years.
The 2.4-mile track produces some awesome racing, and if you look at that map, look at how high speed some of these corners are. And if we're in a more advanced car, such as a Formula 1 car here, you would obviously have a lot of impact from the dirty air, but a Skip Barber car is not really going to be impacted that much. These cars are going to be able to follow each other very easily, and it's going to make for some great racing, great drafting. And look at that track temperature, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, Gary. What's that going to mean for all of these drivers here? And of course, with qualifying just about underway.
Well, considering how hot that is in air temperature without wind as well, those tires are going to be slick, and they're going to be trying to vie for all the grip possible. But with a 75-degree Fahrenheit air temperature, well, the air is great. The track, well, not so much for those tires.
Not so much for the tires. You see the championship standings up on the screen. Martin Cruz leads it right now. Now, just so everybody remembers, especially if this is your first time, the season is 12 races in total, and the best two, the worst two races can be dropped. That includes races that you do not participate in. Obviously, round 5 of Canadian Tire Motorsports Park ready to go south of the border into the United States, July 12th. That's in 2 weeks' time for Virginia International Raceway at Donington Park. We're going to have a great set of tracks as the season gets to its midway point. Really an awesome calendar that we've got going so far. We're following with Martin Cruz, again, that championship leader now. 2 drop races is all these drivers have for the entirety of the season. And Gary, we've been talking a lot about the impact that Christian Perez has had on the season so far. He missed the race at Spa, but then won weeks 2 and 3. One of those had a lot of bonus points included because it was at Phoenix International Raceway, so a lot of points for 1 bonus point for every 3 laps led in the 2K World Cup. The big kicker, though, is that after battling at front for really most of the race, going at Summit Point just the other week, 2 weeks ago, he had a really bad finish after crashing out, finishing 30th out of 34 drivers, only getting 14 points, meaning he's basically used his 2 drop weeks already.
Yeah, Christian Perez has had an up and down season, and it's only just coming to 5 races in. So hopefully for Perez, he can get everything sorted out for this race here at Canadian Tire, as Martin Cruz goes all the way up into, well, a 3-minute 47-second range. I believe just now starting his lap after the out lap. So, well, Perez actually is there on the left-hand side, P4 for the time being, until qualifying gets completed and he gets shuffled down to 5th.
There is a max of 60 drivers in this field. However, there's about half of them who have entered into this race. The first race of the season at Spa had, 54 drivers, something like that. So it's definitely a much bigger track, though, in the Belgian countryside than in most sports. A fantastic track, though. It's probably, I think, in the last 2 months, I've done 4 races here. Pro Mazda's, obviously not an official car anymore, an iRacing, some performance tech motorsports action, some pretty good action here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And Martin Cruz, as we're following along with him, just gets the minute mark on the Mario Andretti straightaway. This is going to be a big drafting opportunity for really all of the drivers in this field. This track you can really follow pretty closely behind. However, there are not too many passing opportunities. I'm trying to watch. I think that Martin Cruz just left the building, and he might be in 27th. So we'll go through the starting grid right now. Simon Edwards will be starting on pole. Joe Osborne P2, Benny Simonson in third, Thomas Simon fourth. A really strong top two rows, Gary.
Christian Perez will start in P5 with Edwin Valerino starting P6. Anthony Cat, keep an eye on him. He'll start position number 7 with Victor Gougenot starting in P8.
Andy Whip P9, and rounding out the top 10, Alexis Tapiavico in 10th. Paul Malachus is in 11th. Richard Kent in 12th in the 33 car.
Tom Ward starts lucky in number 13. Michael Manuel Lucetta starts off in P14. Enzo Canta 15th, and Philip Hammer will start 16th.
And Danielle Forgiarini, is in 17th. Alejandro Liro 18th. Davo Condi in 19th. And George Matushinksi in 20th. And we'll run through the rest of the starting grid very quickly as you see it on your screen, because all the cars are starting to get onto the track. It is a 30-lap race here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And just so everyone is aware, we typically only have one pit stop during the race. Well, the strategy is going to be out of this world today, Gary. I'm not sure if you were watching any of the cars just a little bit before, but with the max fuel being at 2.1 gallons, these cars are going to have 2 pit stops between lap 4 and 13 for the first stop and 17 to 26 for the second. Strategy is going to be incredible today as all of these drivers are starting to get onto the grid. I'm really excited for this one. The run down into turn 1 and then Clayton Corner will be exciting. The engines are revving up here right behind the Michelin sign, and we are green here just outside Toronto at Mosport Park. Simon Edwards with a very good jump. Joe Osborne gets right in line behind him. Benny Simonson is right on his gearbox. A little bit before is Thomas Simon, who lost a little bit of steam. Osborne right on the gearbox of Simon Edwards, might make a run down into 2A and Clayton Corner, which is 2B. You see all of these cars, they're drifting, and going to the outside is Simon Edwards. That might open up the door for Osborne, but the inside line goes back to Simon Edwards here as Benny Simonson makes a dive down the inside of Osborne into Quebec Corner. This run now coming down to the left. The curbing is on the left. You'll have to make a left-handed turn downhill before going right back up to the right side for this this is such a difficult corner right here. As you see, Benny Simonson gets to the inside of Simon Edwards. Edwards peels off. They're side by side out of 5C, and they're going to be right alongside each other, Gary, in the Mario Andretti straightaway.
They could be going 3 wide because Joe Osborne's looking over to the right-hand side. Benny Simonson, he'll stay behind Simonson. Actually, here comes Tomas Simon as well, directly behind Simon Edwards, practically bump drifting down the Mario Andretti straightaway as they head into the second half of the track. But they're going to be on top of the revs right here. Simonson out front for sure as Osborne follows right through directly on the gearbox. Simon Edwards will get shuffled down to 5th. Tomas Simon was looking over to the right-hand side, tries again, and settles in behind Simon Edwards. What a run. If that was the run on the first lap down that straightaway, I can't wait to see what's going to happen down these next few laps.
Are we watching NASCAR? I'm not sure. It might be like the truck series when they come here at Mosport with all the bump drafting that might happen on the Mario Andretti straightaway as they complete lap 1 of 30 on lap 2, and Benny Simonson has led the first lap. Now, just a reminder as we look at the spots gained on lap 1, Tom Ward had the best lap 1, gaining 3 positions. You have Condi too, and Matushinksi also gaining some spots. Christian Perez is in P5 right now. He's going to hope for a good result after that really tumultuous turn just last, or 2 weeks ago that is, as they go into the Moss corner. This always can provide some passing opportunities if a car gets a little bit airy going into 5A. It's really easy to get the car unsettled and loose just because of how the camber is situated here and just all the bumps, Gary.
And it's going to be a challenge for sure heading into these next few laps as we take a look once again behind these drivers as they try and battle it for the lead. Simon Edwards actually trying to slide in just behind, between Joe Osborne and behind Benny Simonson, and he will do so as they head into these next round of corners. Again, just a long sweeping right-hander sliding sideways, and that's nothing new for these Skip Barber cars as Edwards gets really close to the gearbox of Osborne. Luckily stays off of it, no front wing damage for Edwards. So he looked to the right hand side, couldn't get anything because Simonson was in the way. So Edwards will have to wait and see what's going to be the best opportunistic place to pass in these next opening laps.
Ooh, and look at that, almost 3 wide going into turn 1. We're following with Richard Kent. He's alongside Victor Guggenini, Guggenino, I believe we're going to say his name, or just Victor, 240 car. Oh, Victor. And Paul Malakis is watching this battle go in front. Some great action all throughout the field at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and you see there's basically a line of cars forming out of a turn, but once you get back on the throttle, it's really up to anyone's game. They can get alongside and they can make a run, and you can be sure that coming out of Moss Corner into the Mario Andretti straight, there's going to be cars going side by side, possibly even 3 wide. I mean, we saw bump drafting at the beginning of the lap, and Benny Simonson still holds the lead, but Joe Osborne is right on the gearbox. But with the double draft, it's Simon Edwards who might be pulling to the outside of Osborne, and he does. Will Edwards try to make a move down the outside, heading into the S's? He's to the left of Simonson, has the speed, and he has the position, just cannot clear, and he's going to have to go to the outside, come back down to the inside. He might have the momentum, but cannot get to the inside at the second part of the S's, and through the final corner of the track, it's turn 10, or the White's corner, whatever you'd like to call it. It's still Benny Simonson holding on to a slim advantage as we see a car going through the pits. Possibly, if the standings were correct, it said Enzo Canto was going to have a penalty, but no, actually, look who went through the pits. It's the championship leader, Martin Cruz. Maybe some strategy at play.
Martin Cruz in here at the entry, at the start of lap number 4, so we'll see how this will actually work out if he's trying to undercut the field in a sense. So he's definitely stuck in a world of just cars. He's just surrounded by cars at this point. He is actually a lap down, so he's pretty much in line to just not finish on the lead lap at all at this point, unfortunately.
I am really curious to see what this strategy will do for his race, because I think one other car stopped as well, but Martin Cruz is the big name, and we're going to have to watch out for him, because if this strategy works, then, I mean, it's basically written in stone what these drivers are going to have to do for the second pit stop. You'll see just by what they do at the beginning pit stop of the race, as Simon Edwards climbs to the outside of Benny Simonson, hasn't cleared him, almost was able to get the wheel in front of Simonson, but Simonson's still holding strong. That's that inside position in the first part of the S's before again drifting back and taking that spot away from Edwards. That Simonson taking that inside line away. And again, Simonson is going to lead the 4th lap, and for every single, and that's a new fastest lap as well, but Titus Simon takes it away with a 1:33.23. Now, reminder, every 3 laps led is 1 extra bonus point, so you can get a maximum of 30 or 10 bonus points from leading 3 laps. There are more bonus points though, a qualifying bonus, position 1 to position 5. They get 6 to 4, 3, 2, and 1 bonus points. So that's Simon Edwards getting 6 bonus points. Benny Simonson, in addition to that 1 bonus point he already has from leading at least 3 laps, he started third. He has 3 bonus points from that. The winner gets 50 points. The second place driver, 47. It goes down by 2s until you get to points 30, and then it goes by down by 1. A little confusing. It makes more sense, however, once you can kind of see the big picture and see at the end of the season with all the dropped races what everything will mean. As Simon Edwards runs to the left side again of Simonson. He has the steam. I don't think it's enough, though, to clear him. 3rd time, maybe it's a charm. arm on the outside into the S's. It's Benny Simonson again holding strong. Simon Edwards has to be careful because Joe Osborne could get right underneath him, and that would be bad news for possibly both drivers.
Hopefully that will not be the case, and in fact, looking back, Martin Cruz on lap 2 at the very end of the Mario Andretti straightaway as 2 drivers go up pit road, Jonathan Dance and Ron Griffin. Martin Cruz had actually had a little bit of contact, almost hit the back gearbox of Chris McGowan, and then unfortunately for Cruz, with that slow up, he got tagged behind by Perkulis Adonopoulos, and well, that damage resulted in a broken left front tire and a missing rear wing. And well, with that broken left front tire, Cruz couldn't really turn back into pit road, so he had to take a tow. And unfortunately for Cruz, that's how he is stuck 1 lap down right now.
Well, that is absolutely a shame for the championship leader. Still more than half of the season to go, however, and there, of course, is going to be a lot more in the script that we don't even know about yet. As they go through Moss Corner, you get so nerve-wracking. It's so nerve-wracking around here because any driver could slide a little bit too hard and hit the guy behind, which could cause a big pile-up at the slowest corner of the track. I mean, it's kind of a 3-part corner. It's all just 5A, 5B, and 5C, but it's a 3-parter called the Moss Corner. Simon Edwards has a lot more steam than he's had on the previous 3 laps. He is pretty much clear, but I don't think he's going to be able to get to the inside line. And to the inside goes Simonson, still holds it, but a lot closer as they go to the second part of the S's. Maybe a run down the inside or outside of turn 1 or 2 could be in the cards for Edwards, but he goes off track into the grass. That'll cost him a tenth of a second.
Simon Edwards keeps trying to look to the left-hand side there in that corner. Unfortunately, he's just going a little bit too wide. He's carrying a lot of speed, which is great, but unfortunately, he just carries him way too wide, almost to the outer portions of the racetrack. So he's getting there. He's getting closer and closer, as you mentioned, Dylan. So he's going to keep trying that line, I'm sure, if he has to. But unfortunately for Edwards, he might have to just slot in behind Simonson and maybe try to have a little bit of a fake out as well. Maybe pressure Simonson from just by sitting directly behind the 44 machine for Edwards is what he should do. But we'll wait and see what Edwards has in mind and if he knows any other passing opportunities, especially down here when we come to the Mario Andretti straightaway.
You know, it's pretty incredible as we're seeing this entire pack of cars just getting out of Moss Corner. There are 9 cars right now, all the way back to Andy Witt, that could potentially win this race. It's been the Benny Simonson show with Simon Edwards acting as his co-partner. And Edwards, again, 5th time, he goes down the outside, but look who's going down the inside. It's Joe Osborne. They're 3 wide as they're about to head into the S's. Osborne just pulled a little sneaky on them, and he goes into P1. My word, that came out of nowhere.
Osborne with a great double overtake down the straightaway, and it's brought everybody else as well back up with this battle. And so this could pretty much be anything goes at this point. Almost, well, quite similar rather to the first opening few laps of this race, where everyone was single file as well. And there we saw the 242 of Tom Ward go off track just a little bit from right in front of Tomas Simon. Nothing a little bit to worry about though, as many drivers have pretty much gone wide, but not too much to go all the way off the track as Ward gets very close to the gearbox of Edwards, manages to just stay off of that.
Joe Osborne, the first driver not named Benny Simonson to have a lead lap in the race today. Simonson, his 6 laps led so far means he has 2 bonus points in his pocket, plus the 3 from qualifying. So add 5 to his total at the end of this race for the time being. Getting out pretty wide is Simon Edwards. Has to take a deep dive down the inside of Simonson, and that hurt his chances of getting a good run out of 5C down the Mario Andretti straightaway. But you almost don't really think it matters because of how big this draft is. If you're within maybe half a second, you have a great shot of overtaking the driver in front of you, as Benny Simonson goes to the outside of Joe Osborne, and Simon Edwards is going to have another run. He's not going to try and go 3 wide, right? No, he's not, but almost getting collected by Tom Ward as he came in with a lot of steam. I don't think anyone expected that slowdown in front by Simon Edwards. That could have been catastrophic, but nonetheless, look who's back in the lead. It's Benny Simonson taking control of that draft and putting it a masterclass.
There goes Tom Ward. No, he does not actually. He peeked out to the right-hand side. He flicked out to the right-hand side of Simon Edwards directly behind him, decided not to make that move. So he's going to try and look over to the left-hand side. He might actually get it done. So Tom Ward wants in on this battle for not only the podium position, but for the lead of this race as well. Edwards will let him by. And I got a feel for Edwards is because he's been trying to push for that lead every single lap, and then he gets shuffled back to what is now 4th place. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do during the pit stop cycle when that approaches.
I don't feel bad for him. There's so much race left to go, and it's almost like a roll of the dice as you see. Look at that. Tom Ward gets touched. Tom Ward gets touched by Simon Edwards, and they both go off track with some big damage. It looks like Ward has his right tire, maybe both front tires off camber, and they have to go into the garage. We checked this replay, Gary. Edwards still trying to get the car back fired up. I don't know if it's going to work for him. He goes back into the pits, and Tom Ward has manually disconnected.
That's really unfortunate, and man, it's just one of those moments where you don't expect someone to slow up so much. Unfortunately, that was the case there for Simon Edwards. He couldn't get back going either because, well, not only was his right front broken after hitting Tom Ward twice, unfortunately, but as well as the right rear. So Simon Edwards really couldn't get any traction or any speed. He couldn't get the car back going in any way, shape, or form, but even then, he'd be lucky if it would even steer at that point. So we'll see what happens as Anthony Catt currently in the pit road.
Okay, so it's the broadcaster's jinx. We were literally talking about feeling bad or not feeling bad for Simon Edwards, and then obviously that happens as Benny Simonson almost goes out to the grass, which could have been race over if he went into the tire barriers. That gives Joe Osborne a clear run into first, going down into Moss Corner. But Gary, broadcaster's jinx, perhaps?
Most likely. I wouldn't doubt that in any way, shape, or form. We have to feel bad, and then suddenly, not even about a lap later, Simon Edwards wrecks out, at least
not even a lap?
Temporarily. Well, yeah, not even a lap, which is the worst thing. So if you hadn't felt for Simon Edwards then, well, now you probably do.
I was just in the middle of saying, you shouldn't feel bad for Simon Edwards. There's really nothing you can do. Oh, he crashes. So that is what happens. But nonetheless, we've got a fun race ahead of us. Lap 10 of 30, about to go to the 1/3 point of this race. It's one of the longer 2K World Cup races of the season. Typically, they go by very quickly unless you love watching a bunch of caution laps like we had at Phoenix International Raceway. But nonetheless, there are a lot of drivers, especially from this front pack, who have not pit yet, that will have to go into the pits before lap 13. So within 2 or so laps, you'll see a lot of cars dive into the pits. You see one car into the pits and actually gets into the grass right in front of this lead pack. That could have been very dangerous, and it ended up not being anything. That was actually Simon Edwards who joined the pack again a few laps down, however, and obviously that's not going to be a battle for position. But nonetheless, we've got some good battles all the way through the field, 2 wide racing. And as we are nearing that midway point of this race, Gary, what have been the biggest standouts to you so far?
Well, the biggest standout is this Mario Andretti corner, and Mario Andretti straightaway rather, leading into the final few corners. And well, it's pretty obvious. It's a great passing opportunity, and sometimes those final corners, the S's essentially, can lead to some great battles if you can somehow manage to stick your nose into either the left or right hand side of somebody. And Christian Perez from out of absolutely nowhere is going to be challenging and passing Tomas Simon on the left-hand side, and that's not going to happen as Simonson slows up, and somehow both drivers manage to avoid that, and Christian Perez still gets by Tomas Simon.
Man, oh man, Christian Perez, he's got a lot of guts to be going that wildly down the inside or outside, as he's been proven to do so far in this season. Just the thing with Perez is, you know, after last week, you've got to be thinking that his confidence, or 2 weeks ago, his confidence might be a little bit shaken, but you really can't tell by the way he's driving. He's always trying to go for it, and to be honest, Gary, he kind of does, because his 2 drop weeks, they're pretty much already set with the no-show at Spa in week 1, and at Summit Point only getting 14 points from a 30th place finish. I mean, there's really not going to be another time to do worse than that 14-point performance. And if he does do worse, then I mean, it's almost season over, championship run over for him. So he knows what he has to do. It helps, though, that Martin Cruz has had a shocker of a race so far that started really back with qualifying when he wasn't happy with his lap, messed up, and then went back onto the grid in 27th place.
Right now for Perez, again, he's just capitalizing on this race. Again, has had an up and down season almost, in a sense, so he's doing it great so far, but we have to wait and see how he will fare when the pit stop cycle comes through, as defending very heavily. A little bit of a late move from Joe Osborne, but Christian Perez will manage to just get by. Actually, Benny Simonson, maybe no, but he'll stay on the left-hand side. This is what I was trying to talk about here, is sticking and taking that opportunity on the left-hand side, but unfortunately with this last corner, Simonson will defend that second place position, and you'd have to have a very, very good run on that left-hand side to outperform anybody who's using that preferred lane on the inside in that last right-hander.
That was seriously some great driving, as we see a lot more cars are starting to head down into the pits. You see the, I'm seeing the number 33 Richard Kent car currently in the pits. He was in 12th place as he crossed the line. Manuel Lucetta, who was in 10th place, is also in the pits. So a lot of gaps are going to form over the next couple laps. You really have to think, Gary, that all of these drivers at the end of this lap have to go into the pits for their first pit stop, because if they don't, they're really risking not having enough fuel to get around for another lap. And the other thing is, as we see Joe Osborne still in the lead here, you're going to have to think about saving for the next pit stop, because I don't know, if these guys don't make a pit stop right here, do you think that maybe they're thinking they can go for a one-stopper as they go 3 wide? Hold that thought as we head down towards the S's. Benny Simonson is sandwiched between Osborne on the inside and Perez on the outside, and Christian Perez from 3rd to 1st in one corner. He gets the position, and will he go down into the pits? That would be very anticlimactic, but he stays out, so he's going to try and go for another lap. Could he be taking a bit of a gamble here, as well as Thomas Simon and some other drivers as well?
Well, to answer your question, your question that you originally did ask, is that, well, do they think they could go one more lap? Well, considering that they went 3 wide, most likely, especially for Christian Perez, with that double overtake, as 4 drivers currently in pit road, Osborne is one of them, along with Simonson, Valerino, looking at Malakas, Paul Hammer, Gustavo Condi, Don Parks, and Neil Kemp are the drivers in pit road, and that is relatively the remainder of your top 10. So the drivers that really have yet to pit are your front 2 runners, both Tomas Simon currently running 2nd, Christian Perez running in 1st. So seeing where these 2 will sort out is going to be something to really look ahead for in this next lap. And they're probably trying to one-stop this, and I wouldn't really be surprised. But again, that all depends on the performance of the driver and how hard they're pushing the car here.
Yeah, I really do feel like this is a gamble of some sorts. If you've stayed out for this lap, try to almost see if you can go another lap, and if you can probably go for the remainder of the race and have a clear advantage over the entire rest of the competition. As going sharply down the outside into the grass is Thomas Simon. Will he make the move on the outside? Christian Perez, he doesn't really want to have anything to do with that, and it looks like Simon gets to the outside, almost comes together with Perez. He spins, he keeps it together though, and he keeps the car on track, no damage. He's going to go down in the pit lane. That is a foot in your mouth moment.
That is incredibly close. A great job somehow keeping it saved by Tomas Simon. He tried to catch it the moment he knew it was sliding the wrong direction. And, well, luckily he does keep it off both Christian Perez, the wall, and pretty much anybody else. And, well, unfortunately, on pit entry, somebody had ran out of fuel. That was Alex Topeka Vico. And unfortunately for that 26, going to be having to take a tow and currently fall 2 laps down.
Okay, but who's going to come out with the lead? Benny Simonson is rounding into turn 1, and look who's to the right of him as he's coming out of the pits. That's Christian Perez.
It's actually Anthony Cat, I think.
No, it's actually Christian Perez that is right into the pits. But Anthony Cat, did he jump them all and get into P1? We'll have to take a look at that. I think he did. Anthony Cat, he came out of nowhere.
I don't know from where, but definitely out of nowhere. That is for sure. That's what I was trying to reference, because I was looking as well at Osborne, Simonson, and Perez. Next thing you know, I see Anthony Cat change and switch to first on the timing screen. The next thing you know, I'm thinking, wait, where did he come from? And are we sure he's in the lead? Did he not pit? No, he did pit for sure. And that was double checking. 5 laps to go, lap 10. So it's an undercut for Anthony Cat.
I don't necessarily know if it was an undercut to try and get, I'm not sure if even would have stopped for fresh tires. I just think once you're not battling for position, you're going to be able to get faster lap times, because going 2 wide, 3 wide down the Mario Andretti straightaway is some great spectacle, but it's not really going to gain you any sort of time. And if Perez, if Thomas Simon, Benny Simonson, if they know what's where, Thomas Simon is far back in the order right now, but if Benny Simonson, Joe Osborne, Christian Perez knows what's best for them, they should work together to try and catch up to Anthony Cat, who officially on the iRacing leaderboard has been credited as the leader. He started in 7th place and now has a 2.8 second advantage. He's going to be killed, though, with the draft down the Mario Andretti straightaway, will he not?
Most likely we'll have to wait and see while that plays out for actually this lap. And while double checking, apparently Thomas Simon had ran out of fuel, he said, over the driver's radio, unfortunately. So that is probably one reason why he lost grip, is the fact that the speed change was so sudden. First you're going full throttle and then it's just nothing. So that will explain why he had unfortunately spun out so quickly as well, with a very large loss of fuel there. So luckily for Simon, though, no major damage to himself or anybody else. So luckily he can continue this race.
And just to let you know, where Simon Edwards, the champion, or not the championship leader, but one of the championship hopefuls in the field today, after that big incident, he's currently in 24th, a minute and 5 seconds behind the leaders. So obviously he's not anywhere close to a battle, but if more cars do have issues, he could potentially come back into play, and that would be very good for his championship hopes. If you can come, I always have said this, Gary, if you are in a championship battle, the true mark of a champion is one who can battle back and get some decent points after facing adversity, at least early on in a race. And I think that's what separates a champion and a runner-up, in my opinion.
And those would be the 2 key things as well to essentially distinguish. And well, we'll see as a little bit of Benny Simonson actually caught the grass a little bit. I thought he was going to slip out wide. Luckily he didn't, but he did ever so slightly, but nothing too major. He didn't slip out wide, wider than the racing line, or at least his preferred lane. So Simonson able to hang on to after clipping the grass and having an incredibly close moment there.
It's pretty incredible how spread out the field is now. When the top 9 were running just in line with each other, now it's not that. And just as a reference, Anthony Cat, not this previous time, but the time before that, when he crossed the line, he had a 2.8 second advantage. Now it's closer to a 3 second advantage over Benny Simonson. So without a draft partner, Anthony Cat is storming, and not storming, but at least getting a little bit of a drizzle away from this field. And I think it's because of a move like this with Joe Osborne going down to the right of Benny Simonson, going to have an inside track going into the S's, but they're still fighting. Simonson gets the position around the outside. How much will that slow them down, though?
especially heading into that this final S's basically, is the fact that this could slow them up by a lot if they continue to keep battling side by side. It's been seen a lot in not only, well, pretty much just any type of racing, road course racing, oval racing, sometimes as well, depending on the track, is that you run side by side, you're bound to slow yourself up, and unfortunately it's just not going to work in any way, shape, or form if you continue to battle side by side. So hopefully, I mean, they're probably actually banking on the part that Anthony Cat won't be able to make it to the end, because he did pit on, well, it's relatively lap number 10, and unless Cat somehow does know something that we don't, or is just hopeful that everyone else would run out in the final couple of laps, I don't think they believe Anthony Cat is going to be a threat later on in this race.
Well, that's the only thing that would make that possible. And by the way, when they crossed the line, the gap extended again to 3.17 seconds. The only thing I can think of is that Perez, Osborne, Simonson think they can go the entire way if they're not willing to work together to try and catch Anthony Cat. And you also have to think of this. If there is a 3-second advantage that can be gained off of a pit stop, a 3-second advantage can be shut down to nil. With another pit stop, as Simonson and Osborne get very close as they're heading into the S's, almost touching with Osborne's front right and Simonson's back rear left tire. That could have been a very bad ending for both drivers. I think that if we're going by the pit stop windows, lap 4 to 13 was the opening pit window for all of these drivers here. We have to think the next pit window is going to be starting. Actually, it's already started, as some drivers you can see are already coming out of the pits. It's lap 17 to 26. So if we want to go by that way, you can, from what it's saying, it sounds like you can make it around 13, 14 laps on one tank of fuel, but we've already seen Christian Perez make it 15 laps on a tank of fuel. I feel like Perez is in the best shape of any driver right now, because we know with certainty that Anthony Cat will be coming in within the next 5 laps. And Benny Simonson, Joe Osborne, they're going, if they want to make this on a one-stopper, I mean, that's asking a lot. That's asking 16 or 17 laps. That's 5 to 7.5 more miles. I don't really know if they can stretch it, Gary.
We'll have to wait and see. Considering that they're battling by this much, I'm pretty sure they somehow think they could at least make it to the end. But goes Joe Osborne, at least to the left-hand side of Benny Simonson, once again down the Mario Andretti straightaway. He'll actually almost get the pass complete, goes into the grass sideways. He just hangs onto it, and Benny Simonson will get by as Osborne backs out, and very rightfully so. Osborne was on the grass there for he was practically halfway on ice and halfway on actual grip road. So incredible driving by Osborne to keep that under control at that high of a speed.
Osborne is getting very feisty, trying to overtake that P2 place, and the gap went down, Gary, by 1/100th of a second. So really no change there in how far ahead Anthony Cat is. I really think now Christian Perez, with a double draft, you can do a lot of damage as opposed to just a one-car draft. I feel like he's banking on the fact that he's only going to have to, he's not going to have to make another pit stop. I think he's hoping that Simonson and Osborne will both have to go down towards pit lane, which, by the way, is a really difficult pit lane to get into, especially with how these cars just drift around the corner. And speaking about drifting, they're heading into Moss Corner with a drift. It's so cool to see that kind of shot with these cars just right on edge the entirety of the time. What a fun car, a Skip Barber Formula 2000. I'd always love to go to a Skip Barber Racing School class. Gary, I'm not sure if you've ever had your try at one.
Unfortunately not. I want to, but I still haven't. The closest I've gotten is go-karts, and well, it's almost the same, but not even far from that, actually. So these will be very fun to drive, as Osborne is showing just how enjoyable it is. He'll rightfully back out again. I think at this point what Osborne's doing, he's just messing with Simonson for these next couple of laps, because he made the pass. He probably could have kept it. He could have battled Simonson, but I think what Osborne is doing, he's either messing with Simonson, playing some mind games, or just saying, hey, I can make this pass, by the way, but well, as far as sticking for it, I'm not going to chance that just yet.
10 laps to go. We're 2/3 of the way through this race, the longest so far besides the Phoenix race of the season for the 2K World Cup drivers. We're seeing this battle with Don Parks and Hans Hewer, but obviously you have one car going into pit lane, Hans Hewer, and he's going to get some discount tires, I guess you could say, as he heads down towards the pits. Osborne, I feel like while we are talking about some other drivers and pit strategy, Osborne, he totally could make the move if he wanted to be more aggressive. I don't know if they're just trying to work together a little bit now, or at least that's what Osborne is thinking of, because the gap went back down to 2.8 seconds. And you know these drivers, especially Kat, are thinking about pit stops. Kat has to make another pit stop. Again, the question is whether Osborne, Simonson have to, and definitely if Perez doesn't need to, because that's even more in the books. As Osborne goes to the left of Simonson again, if Osborne wants to continue catching up, I think you'll see him just take his foot off the throttle. He absolutely does and gets right back in line. So Anthony Cat, he's got to be looking in his rear view in just a rear view mirror in just a few laps, because
he's going to pit road.
He's going into pit road. Yes, he's going into pit road. I think he saw what was kind of aligning for him. He needed to get into the pit, shake it up a little bit more, because that pack of three, they were clawing at him.
Yeah, by the time they had come down, before Anthony Cat had went to his pit stall, is the fact that the gap was down to 2.5 seconds compared to 3.2 last time. So either Cat had to for sure go to pit road, as well, judging by the 13.1 second pit stop. It's definite for Anthony Cat that he definitely needed just a lot more fuel. So we'll see where he sorts out. He's currently in the 12th place position, and he's going to be battling Victor Gougenot for that P12 position if that 240 can catch up, but it's quite a distance between himself and the car in front, Don Parks. So in the meantime, I think the spot for the lead might be on. And well, you talked about Christian Perez last lap going into battle, and well, Perez is 1 lap shorter on the run compared to Osborne and Simonson directly in front of him. So Perez is going to be just enjoying this until these final couple laps.
I think Perez has this in the bag, especially with Osborne and Simonson. Simonson is going to be the worst off of these three drivers, because he's been facing the wind head on, 6-mile-per-hour wind, as we saw in the graphic before this race started. And he's going into the pits, and so is Osborne, and Perez stays out. So is this the winning move? Does Christian Perez have enough in the tank to last another 8 laps and win here at Mosport for his second, or actually third, win of the season, Gary? It might happen. It's going to have to take a lot of saving fuel on Perez's part.
And I think Cat went to pit road with, technically on 16 complete laps.
Ooh,
we'll say that.
Look at that replay.
Well, speaking of Anthony Cat,
Anthony
Cat
Cat
goes that is wide, so he's very wide, having of course, most likely not used to having that, but having a full tank as of yet. But this is going to be the key thing. He's actually going to be behind Valerino and Simonson, who have come out, as well as Osborne. So Cat could actually use the draft of Valerino, and if Valerino can just get enough momentum, we'll see. So this could play out by a lot, as Tomas Simon is actually falling back. Actually, no, he's not, just behind Don Parks. So a lot of shuffling around going on here, but back to my original point is that Anthony Cat pitted with technically 16 complete laps, 17 laps from entering pit road. So Christian Perez might be able to make it the next 8 laps.
Oh, watch out. There's a driver right in front of Osborne and Simonson. He gets back on the track without any difficulty. That's Enzo Canta, the Italian driver. So only a 1-car spin. Luckily for these lead pack cars, no more, no less. That's all they wanted to see. God, the nerves must be incredible for all these drivers right now. And by the way, as Osborne looks to make a move down the right-hand side of Thomas Simon, he lets him go, obviously. Simon is not in the battle with these drivers at the moment. I will say this. There was a 3.5 second, actually a 4.5-second swing with Anthony Catling into the pits a lap or two earlier, and then having the drivers of Benny Simonson and Joe Osborne go into the pits. A 4.5-second swing. Remember, we were talking about how if a 3-second advantage can be gained on one pit stop, it can be lost on the next, and it was, and some.
Right now I'm looking at the standings where Christian Perez, the only driver in the top 5 to have gone on single digits for his last run. 9 laps since his last pit stop, as compared to Manuel Lucetta, who's currently sitting in second after pitting 11 laps ago. George Matuszynski currently sitting in P3 after pitting 12 laps ago, and then Richard Kent in 4th after pitting 11 laps ago, and then Philip Hammer after pitting 10 laps ago. He sits P5 as there's a side-by-side battle almost down the straightaway. Just an easy and very quick pass.
Simon Edwards is the driver right now with Christian Perez. Edwards goes a lap down as passed him just before ending on the Mario Andretti straightaway. He's the first driver a lap down, currently in 22nd place, so not awful. Certainly better than what Christian Perez got. His finish was 2 weeks ago at the Summit Point Raceway, one of the most unique raceways, I think, in the United States. Not used for any top action anymore or ever, but it's got some great motorcycle racing, and also provided us a great battle that we were able to watch with the Skip Barber cars just those 14 days ago. Perez still in front. Philip Hammer currently in second. Manuel Lucetta actually is exiting the pits right now. And, you know, Christian Perez, even though he might be able to go on a one-stop strategy, he is maybe hurting himself by not letting Simon Edwards back through out of 5C, because you want that draft. You have the draft. It's going to save you fuel. You're not going to have to be hitting the throttle all the way down to just get to 108 miles per hour. You can get to 112 miles per hour if you're in the draft with not having to use as much fuel. But, I mean, could this actually end up hurting him if he doesn't get a draft? I mean, we're at 5.5, not even laps to go. We don't know if he can make it, but if he's dealing with just clean air in front, he might not be able to make it as he comes through the second part of the S's, does not dive down into the pits. 5 laps. If he does not pit when lap 30 comes up, it's going to be down to whether or not he has the fuel. This could be quite a grandstand finish here. We have no idea.
And back to your point is that Christian Perez, yeah, he should be just sitting behind Simon Edwards. Perez has a 12.8 second gap between himself and second place Philip Hammer.
It's actually Philip Hammer just goes down into the pits.
At that point, it's not going to be Benny Simonson, so I'll wait for the scoring to update over on this side. So it's not going to be make that 24.3 second gap between now Benny Simonson in second place and Christian Perez. There it is at the of your screen there on that graphic. And oh, by the way, Benny Simonson, Joe Osborne, Anthony Cat, all within, well, not exactly within striking. Well, they're in striking distance of each other, not so much as the lead, but if it does come down to it, it could be the lead. And, well, Simonson and Osborne pit 3 laps ago. Anthony Cat pit 4 laps ago. And the driver next closest behind in 5th place, Paul Malaquias, has also pit 3 laps ago, but he's a little bit in no man's land right now.
Something that Simon Edwards does not want to have any part of is destroying any chance of a first place for Christian Perez by force. Perez lets Edwards go smartly, and he'll slot in behind him going around the S's. Will he come in this time? If not, there's going to only be 3 more opportunities for him to do so. He stays out. I feel like at this point, it's better to just try to go and get the win by saving fuel, and slotting behind is the best way to do it. There are now 4 laps left. 3 more opportunities for him to go into the pits, but with that gap now down to what, 24 seconds? We'll see when Simonson does cross the line. That could be a huge difference in terms of, I mean, if he has to go into the pits, he's not going to keep first place. There's no way. It's not a 24-second thing. It's definitely more than that he would have to make up that delta. It's still 23 seconds, actually, 23.8 with Anthony Cat in second place. and Christian Perez still slotted in between, or right behind Edwards. This could come down to whether or not the amount of fuel that is able to be saved will make the risk worth it. Because again, if Christian Perez has to go into the pits or runs out of fuel, you can almost kiss that championship hope goodbye because of the drop result, the poor result when he got 14 points 2 weeks ago, and possibly a not so good result here as he goes down the inside of Edwards. I just don't understand this strategy unless he feels like he can make it.
That's the only thing that I'm thinking of, is that not only does he think he could make it, but I'm pretty sure that he's also assuming that he's also thinking about those championship statistics, as the fact that
he's going down to the pits. He's going down into the pits. Christian Perez cannot make it. He was trying to get as much fuel saved or as much time gained as possible. But the battle, immediately we look at Anthony Catt, Benny Simonson, and Joe Osborne. Where are they going to come out? There are 3 laps left as the leader, Christian Perez, just crossed the line. Anthony Catt has to watch as Benny Simonson has that potential first place locked in. Christian Perez is coming out of the pits right now, and coming past the start-finish line is Benny Simonson. Perez, did he maybe time this perfectly? I don't know if he's going to have the steam. Yes, Christian Perez, he's in the first place. He almost let it slip, but that was perfectly maneuvered. 3 laps left, and Benny Simonson is watching as Christian Perez is in first place, just a second ahead of him.
With a 24-second gap and total time in pit lane 27 seconds, somehow, some way, Christian Perez manages to hold on to the lead, coming, well, with 3 laps to go actually at the start-finish line, coming to 2 laps to go the next time we cross it, and Simonson is going to be within drafting range as well, pretty much any of these, the rest of these top 4 drivers. So this is going to be a very fun 4-car battle for the lead, but a great job by Christian Perez. I didn't think it was possible, just because the fact that the total time down pit lane from everybody else is relatively, well, 28 to 34 seconds. And I think actually this is the fastest that anyone has been on pit lane in general, is Christian Perez by 27 seconds flat. Well,
Gary, when you don't have to add that much fuel into the tank, it's going to end up being a lot quicker for you to get in and out of pit lane. Into the S's, out of the Mario Andretti straightaway, the gap is negligible now. They are right there. Benny Simonson right on the gearbox, ready to pounce as they go through White's corner for the 3rd to final time. We're coming on the penultimate lap of round 5 of the 2K World Cup at Mo Sport. It's really any of the top 4's race, all the way back to Joe Osborne. Is it Osborne, Anthony Catt, Benny Simonson, or Christian Perez's race? Simonson goes down the inside of Perez, down around 2A and 2B. Will he make it stick? He does. He gets into first place, and Simonson will look to have inside position going around Quebec corner. Perez, though, tries to get to the inside of Simonson. He might have some good positioning, but they're going to have to go to the left again before making 2 right-handed square corners in Moss corner. This is incredible action here. They head down the hill, up the hill, and it's Benny Simonson who has the lead, but only momentarily as they go through Mario Andretti straightaway for the 2nd to last time, Gary.
Christian Perez with the near textbook switch back there. Almost had the pass on Benny Simonson. Unfortunately, actually now he'll get the pass here down the Mario Andretti straightaway. But now the question is, what will happen with Anthony Catt and Joe Osborne? Catt is going to go to left-hand side. Here comes Osborne. It's going to be 4 wide. No, it's still 3 wide.
Osborne's going to have to slow down, but it looks like Anthony Catt will be in the lead on the outside, but he does have Benny Simonson to contend with on the inside, but only momentarily. It's Anthony Catt in the lead, but look, Simonson has to worry about Christian Perez right behind him. How did Anthony Catt go from 3rd to 1st for the 2nd time in 1 lap? White flag is in the air. 1 more lap to go around Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Anthony Catt has the lead out of turn 1. There's a good run, though, for Benny Simonson. Not good enough. He's going to have to continue slotting right in behind Catt, but Catt gets a little wide off the apex. He's not not going to have the run that Simonson has, and Simonson goes down the inside of Quebec corner. Yeah, I don't know if he'll be able to make it stick. It's going to be Cat who has some speed and momentum. A car actually spun off right in front before disappearing. Anthony Cat still has some momentum as he goes down the inside. They're two abreast, 2 rows back. It's Joe Osborne in P4, but he can go into P1. Don't doubt it. Anthony Cat gets a little wide, but it's good for him to get a run into Mario Andretti straightaway. It's the final time in this long draft-heavy straight here at Mosport. Benny Simonson, P2. Christian Perez is now in P4. Joe Osborne's in P3. Remember, Osborne, the double draft, going to the outside as it looks like Benny Simonson's on the grass. 2 tires on the track, 2 in the grass. Will he make it stick? The pass in the grass. It's Benny Simonson. Osborne on the outside, but Simonson makes it stick. And through the S's, just a few more corners to go. Will he make that incredible move count? Through the final corner, it's white. It's going to be Benny Simonson if he can keep it on track. He does. The flag is out. Simonson wins at Mosport. Unbelievable.
An absolutely incredible battle, and throughout all of that, everyone made it through in the top 4 to the end from that. A great finish, and the race is, of course, still on here at Mosport, as everyone else is going to be finishing up their laps at the moment. Everyone relatively spread out, seeing Bruin Bell almost for P14 with Forgiurani and Adonopoulos. Adonopoulos is going to try and make a pass to the right-hand side, but it will not work. So Adonopoulos and Forgiurani 15th and 14th respectively. Great job coming to the finish for everybody here.
And most importantly, Christian Perez finishes on the podium, and instead of any mistake with him running out of fuel or any of the number of things that could have gone wrong for him, he is able to get some premium points. We'll have to say exactly what the bonus point situation looks like, but for the time being, here are the race results. Benny Simonson with the win. 0.4 of a second back is Anthony Cat, and Christian Perez is a further 0.6 back of Simonson. Osborne, that's going to sting just on the outside, was P3 going into the S's. He almost made it stick on the outside, didn't get it done. Paul Malakis, Manuel Lachetta, Philip Hammer, George Mechasinski, and Richard Kent are in for the top 9, and Enzo Canta, who had a bit of a struggling race, is able to finish in the top 10, Gary.
The rest of the field finishing up as well, as we see Gustavo Condi in 11th place, Hans Hewer finishing off in P12 with Don Parks, Danielle Forgiurani and Perkulis Adonopoulos, as I mentioned, both 14th and 15th battling it to the line, but Forgiurani just managed to come out ahead with Victor Gougenot, Neil Kemp in 16th and 17th, Rob Adams in 18th. 19th place is Tomas Simon, and poor Tomas Simon, as Alejandro Lero will finish off in position number 20.
And we keep going back. Edwards, Camari, Jonathan Dance, Chris McGowan, Andy Witt. Those top 25 drivers are the drivers who finish on the lead lap. Alexis Tapiavico, Martin Cruz. Oh, Martin Cruz, what a poor day for him. Edwin Valerino, another poor day for a top driver. He was up in the field, as was Tom Ward, who finishes 21 laps down. Ronan Griffin, 25 laps down. And we'll be able to show you the rest of the drivers. Actually, there's one more driver, Borja Zazo, who finishes 28 laps down in 31st. But Gary, that was one fantastic race, and it kept us guessing literally until the final quarter.
Even with the strategy from Christian Perez is the fact that we thought he wouldn't be able to make it. We thought he would stretch it. Well, he made it, and he didn't stretch it, so we were right on at least one count, and what a race overall that was. That was absolutely incredible, and Perez still getting a great points day after the rough season that he's had so far, just up and down, and well, it ends with a top 3 podium finish.
Well, we are glad to bring it to you here on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Some great racing, and at the end of the day, Benny Simonson gets the win, and he's going to be going home very happy with that one. If he wants to make a run in this championship, well, he's getting it started. 2 points in Spa, 0 points round 2, did not compete at Phoenix, and then he got a 42-point finish 2 weeks ago and gets the win here. Could he be making a play at the championship? It might be a little bit more of a long shot than some other drivers, but he has the opportunity. 2 weeks from now, Virginia International Raceway, the 2K World Cup goes American once again, and after that race, it is the midway point of the season. Cannot wait for that one. And Gary, it's your final race, your final broadcast with us, right?
It depends on that. Well, for at least the series, yes, for now, for sure. It's a little bit of a break. I'm not leaving, that's for sure. Just definitely a little bit of a hiatus, question mark, so we'll see. But definitely, it's regardless going to be very fun. I've heard that Virginia International is incredibly underrated, and somehow I've yet to see a race there. So, well, luckily I could see it from my own eyes myself in the next 2 weeks.
Well, VIR will provide some great action. I'm Dylan Coyle alongside Gary Weaver. Hugo Louise, the main man on Race Spot TV, taking over for Arjuna today. Thank you so much, Hugo. We had a great time bringing you the action. We'll see you 2 weeks from now in Virginia. So long, everybody.